how exactly did Korean beauty become such a global money-making phenomenon? There's this super popular cosmetic store that's near the BBC offices here in DC that I have unfortunately spent a little too much time and money in over the years. And one thing I've noticed is that there are so many Korean skincare products. I'm not talking about just a little dedicated section. I'm talking about shelves and shelves of sheet masks, moisturizers, serums, all promising to give you that iconic pore-free, glassy skin look that is so synonymous with K-beauty. This whole K-beauty scene has been trendy for a while. I'm sure you know that. But what we're seeing now is a supercharged K-beauty boom. It's part of a soft power push from the Korean government. The clearest example of this is that as of this year, the United States now imports more cosmetics from South Korea than any other country. From the BBC, I'm Asma Khalid in Washington, D.C. And today on The Global Story, what idea of beauty are we buying? Elise, I'm so grateful that we have you on the show today because you have spent years reporting from South Korea. You're also an expert on Korean beauty. You've written a book about this all. And Korean beauty products have been popular globally for some time now. But what I think really caught our attention is that this year, for the first time, South Korea is now the biggest cosmetics exporter to the United States. How did you get so interested in reporting on this trend?
Yeah, I was sent to Seoul to open NPR's first Northeast Asia bureau, which covered both Koreas, North Korea, South Korea, and Japan, in the beginning of 2015, so now 10 years ago. And that was at the sort of height or the peak of the first K-beauty wave. This is when K-beauty was becoming really understood and of interest abroad in the United States. And that happened to coincide with my time in South Korea, when a lot of folks were coming over to Seoul to try and fill giant suitcases worth of skincare and makeup products to bring back home to China or bring back home to the UK or the United States. What was really nagging at me was just how much appearance seemed to matter in South Korea, especially for somebody I had grown up in Texas. And towards the end of my high school years, did some modeling. And so I remember this real eye of judgment about my appearance when I was very young. And I kind of put that away. I didn't really think about it that much as I became a journalist and came up. But in Seoul, this was a place where people seemed to have license to really make comments, open comments about my appearance constantly, usually focusing on something that was wrong with it. I had 2 kids when I was there. So when I was postpartum, people made open comments about my weight. I'm 5'9". I'm already kind of a tall, big person. And when I moved down the streets, in certain parts of town, especially the ones that catered to Americans, people would just yell, storekeepers would actually yell, kunsaiji, which is big size, big size. We have clothes for you, you giant.
So in theory, it was meant to be helpful. It was just verbalized, it sounds like, in a really different way,
right,
socially, culturally, than I imagine anybody would here in the U.S.
Yes, I had never been made more aware of my appearance and how I appeared to other people. And most of the time, this wasn't worthy of deeper reporting. It was just wow, I'm a real fish out of water. It wasn't until after my time abroad and after there were massive women's rights rallies in Seoul during my time there, and a lot of the women were actually fighting for their bodily liberation in the form of being able to express their appearance however they wanted, that I really thought, this is unfinished business. I really need to look deeper into it. And then I spent more time reporting and mixed that with some of my reflections for my book that became Flawless Lessons in Looks and Culture from the K-Beauty Capital, which explores all of these things.
Yeah. So let's talk more about K-beauty. When people talk about K-beauty products, what's the look you would say they are aiming for?
It's hyper feminine. It is that dewy skin, that glass skin. We hear about glass skin, porelessness, just having photo ready skin without makeup, right? It's all about having a beautiful, flawless canvas before any makeup is even applied. Korean women especially are very sophisticated when it came to which products were working, which products their friends really swore by, what their moms have passed down as ingredients that were effective. And so Korean women will tell you taking care of your skin, preventing sun damage has been something that has been passed down generationally, like that it was very important to care for your skin. And there's a lot of Neo-Confucian ideals baked into that. You know, it's about almost respecting your elders and respecting your ancestors and the hair that they gave you and the skin that they gave you.
And is this meant exclusively for women, or is the popularity of it, does it also extend to men?
It absolutely extends to men. South Korean men are the biggest purchasers of skincare and hair products per capita among male populations in the world. There were lots of men that I interviewed in South Korea who got their faces waxed instead of shaved because they didn't want to have stubble or even the appearance, you know, of hair growing on their face. But also it's the most sophisticated aesthetic market in the world. It's the place where not only are there thousands and thousands of skincare and cosmetics brands that are competing against one another, there's also med spas and cosmetic surgery clinics and cosmetic surgeons who have been around for decades, perfecting and innovating various procedures. Korean Health Ministry data shows that 53% of college-aged women in South Korea have undergone some sort of procedure.
So you said earlier that taking care of your skin has been a priority for generations of Koreans. It's something that has been passed down as a sense of taking care of what was given to you from your ancestors. But when did the commercialization of K-beauty products really begin?
There was always a small K-beauty industry after the Korean War. So obviously Korea was ravaged by two wars back to back after being colonized. So in the beginning of the 20th century, it was colonized by Japan until World War II, after which South Korea then entered a period of occupation before the Korean War. The Korean War, which then in the 1950s split North Korea from South Korea. Post-Korean War, South Korea had some emerging domestic hair care and skincare companies. One of the big ones today, Amore Pacific, started around then, during this post-war period. They were doing fine domestically, you know, but a lot of Koreans who could afford it still sought French products and American products. So if you ask Koreans who had relatives in Korea in the 1970s and 80s, they would tell you they were asking for Estee Lauder or they were asking for Clinique and other quote unquote foreign products to be brought into Korea. So instead of this muling K-beauty out, you actually had a muling of Clinique and Estee Lauder into, or Pond's cold cream into South Korea, because still the products outside of the borders were considered more desirable.
And so when did that shift take place?
Around the turn of the century, really with the growth of K-culture. In the 1990s, Korea really needed to diversify its economy. It became one of the top economies in the world. I think in the 1990s, it was the 10th or 11th largest economy in the world at that time. Already, it had shipping, it had manufacturing, it had cars and electronics that we know of, Hyundai, LG, Samsung. But the president in the 1990s, Kim Dae-jung, read a report. There was a government report that showed that if South Korea was able to make a movie on the scale of Jurassic Park, that the revenue from those ticket sales and that box office and just the cultural long tail of it would equal the production and manufacturing of 1.5 million Korean cars. So that culture essentially was a huge potential market for not only the Korean economy, but also Korean coolness. After that government report, the government decided to pour more money into cultural industries. And then in 1997, there was the Asian financial crisis, which then led Korea to essentially go bankrupt and need to be bailed out by the IMF, the International Monetary Fund. And so Korea really stepped on the gas when it came to the production of culture.
So it sounds like what you're saying is that the K wave we are all so familiar with around the globe was a deliberate government-backed strategy. It was a soft power strategy. And K-beauty is part of that strategy.
K-beauty is a consequence. It's like a
Consequence.
yeah,
okay.
it's a externality that they didn't expect to be as big.
Okay.
Now, K-beauty is very supported by the government. And there's a lot of companies and brands who, if they want to be successful as an export-focused K-beauty industry, they get subsidized. Like, they don't have to pay their corporate taxes back home. But in the very beginning of this soft power strategy, they did not include K-beauty as one of the dimensions. It wasn't until they saw that there was like, oh, this unexpected outcome that people also want to buy the lipstick that our K-pop idols are wearing, that, oh, we should really push the lipstick and push the companies behind the lipstick. So 2011 was a seminal year for Korean culture because that was the year Psy, Gangnam Style,
Oh, I remember, yes.
went
Oh my God, is it that long ago? That
global.
also
I know.
blows my mind that that was that many years ago.
I know. What is time?
I know.
So that was a year it went huge. And then there was
Okay.
more and more interest in K culture from places like North America and South America and Europe.
When would you say the United States really caught on to the trend?
2015.
2015. Okay.
A lot of Korean American brands, like people who were in the know, influential Koreans in America, were bringing K-beauty to American audiences. So this is the time where SoCo Glam, which was led by Charlotte Cho, and Peach and Lily, a lot of these sort of startup brand, Glow Recipe, which Glow Recipe is really huge now today, still in Sephora's and Ulta's. This was during the time where they were blogging about it. They were opening up e-commerce shops where you could buy products that were from Korea and get them sent to your home. So all of this was happening around the same time, partially because of the growth of K-pop. BTS debuted. So BTS was kind of coming
The boy
on.
band.
Yes. The
Yes.
biggest band in the world. Yes.
You know, I confess I wasn't so familiar with them, but then they came to the White House briefing room one day when I was covering the White House, and it was a huge moment. And there were many people there just purely to see BTS at the White House.
Oh, girl.
So-
When BTS spoke at the UN, it broke the UN's streaming server. Like,
Wow.
yeah, they are so huge. And so that was all around the same time.
How much has this all taken off since when you first moved to South Korea, which was 10 years ago in 2015? And what's the reason for this new boost in popularity?
I think the new boost is largely driven by TikTok and culture, right? Like this year was a huge year for Korean culture because of K-pop Demon Hunters and Squid Game. Squid Game is back or was back recently. And so South Korean cosmetic exports in the first half of 2025 jumped 15%. And that's largely because of the growth and interest in the United States and in Europe. That is something rather unexpected. I thought that Korean beauty had kind of hit a certain plateau and was just going to hum along and be popular. But instead, it's gotten more popular in 2025, which is why we're having this conversation today, 2 years after I put out my book, right? You have more and more brands, like store brands, Costco, for example, in the United States, Ulta, Sephora, that are bringing in more Korean lines than they ever had before. They had Korean lines already, but now they're expanding. You also have Korean stores themselves.
Actual
Yes.
Korean beauty stores. That's
Yes.
interesting
Yes.
because I had not seen that before. And in
Yeah.
fact, I was going to say, when we went to South Korea with President Biden, I ran out to go grab a bunch of Korean beauty products and like nearly missed the press bus because I was like, I must get these products.
There is going to be an Olive Young opening in 2026.
Oh, that's interesting.
There's a lot more Olive Youngs per capita in Korea than there are Sephora's per capita in the United States.
You know, we've been talking about beauty and culture during this conversation, but you were a long time correspondent in South Korea, also covering the politics, the government, the policies, all of that. And so I am very curious how you view this K-beauty trend as offering a potential soft power boost to the Korean government. What does it mean for the Korean government?
First, it helps the bottom line in a big way because in 2025, South Korea surpassed France as the world's second largest beauty exporter, so cosmetics and skincare exporter. Before, it was the US, France, then South Korea. For a long time, the South Korean government had set as a goal, we want to be bigger. We want to see if by 2025, I think, we could actually achieve this goal of being the biggest or the second biggest exporter in the world. And they did it. And so that is huge for the bottom line and like the maintaining and the growing of an economy that's largely export related. When it comes to culture, you know, we have seen Parasite win Oscars, numerous Oscars. We have seen Squid Game be the biggest thing on Netflix until K-pop Demon Hunters became the biggest thing on Netflix. Korean stars are sought after all over the world.
Okay, I've really got to ask, though, as we talk about these products, Elise, how actually effective they are and whether they are indeed a fad. I mean, I guess part of me is wondering this in particular because you mentioned there were decades in which Koreans themselves were not utilizing these products. They were instead turning, say, to French beauty products. So how effective are they?
The effective products are clearly effective because they're still selling and they work. So what we do know about the Korean domestic market before a lot of these products go abroad is that domestic shoppers are incredibly savvy. And so they will not stick with products that they do not feel are effective for them. And so when there is a hero product or a hot product out of K-beauty, it's because people like it, because they trust it, and it works.
I want to ask you about what K-beauty's popularity has meant for you, yourself, as a mom.
Yeah.
You know, I think in some ways, I will say from my vantage point, it has certainly made the idea of being cool as an Asian feel really differently than when I was growing up. I mean, you just look at how many people dressed up as, say, K-pop Demon Hunters for Halloween. How do you feel that Americans aspiring to Asian beauty standards has changed the idea of being an Asian American in the United States?
I found it really affirming to be out trick-or-treating with my kids at Halloween and see so many little girls dressing up as Rumi from K-pop Demon Hunters. I loved it. I had a real sense growing up of being an outsider or part of an out group and then wanting to assimilate to dominant culture, which for me in St. Louis and then Texas was whiteness, right? And white European beauty ideals, which of course I would never be able to achieve because look at me, I'm an Asian person. And now you have a lot of the mixing and remixing of beauty standards all over the world such that there are more global ideals. And I think there is something really promising about that because I feel my three daughters who are now 8 and 10 and 13, they aren't ashamed of their Asianness. They have dark hair and they have Asian features. Whereas I certainly was because I didn't look like everybody else and I wanted to. And, you know, when you're little, you just want to fit in. But the fact that girls and women still have to place so much attention and value on our appearance at all, and that is tied into our feelings of worthiness, is obviously problematic. And I worry about skincare culture and beauty culture indoctrinating girls at such young ages, right? At first, it's really fun. And it's great to like get to paint my kindergartner at the time's fingernails and have her paint her grandfather's fingernails. I have a little scene in the book about that. But then it begins to really operate on this notion that there's something about us that needs to be fixed, right? And my teenager, now I have a 7th grader who sometimes is like, oh, I don't want to go to school. I look so bad today. And I really worry about that because I experienced that also. That was sort of irrespective of race or any of these differences. It was just that feeling that our appearance matters and it can stop us from raising our hands at school or going for that job or taking that seat at the table. And so that's where I think we really need to interrogate and break down this notion that our worthiness is tied to our external appearance.
Well, Elise, thank you so much. It's so nice to reconnect with you and get a chance to talk. It's been ages.
Yeah, it has, and it's just been a delight to be able to gab about all this with you. Thanks for having me on.